Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Now, Eddie Hearn, the Matchroom boss, who is Anthony Joshua's promoter, has made some very interesting comments. He's again been out in the media talking about the almost desperation in which he's trying to get a Deontay Wilder fight made. At the moment, Hearn is pretty much the only one from the two camps that is really saying anything, and it's been like that for a week or so now. So I'll get to his comments and then to some thoughts, because for me it's very interesting that Team Wilder have been very quiet since Eddie Hearn first said, look, I've had to go around Shelley Finkel. Not much has been coming out of the Wilder camp since then. But I'll get to the comments first. So talking to the UK's TalkSport on Hawksby and Jacobs, Hearn said, we're in talks now with Deontay Wilder. Things are actually starting to progress a little bit because we can't wait until December. This isn't a deal that is going to happen overnight. All we're saying to them is, let's have a meeting, let's keep talking, because ultimately we all have a duty to make this fight. My job is to deliver for my client, and my client wants to fight Deontay Wilder. It is the only fight he wants next, and my job is to make it happen. If I don't, I have failed. I have failed the fight fans, I have failed myself, I have failed Anthony Joshua, and I don't expect to do that. Lots of talk about not wanting to fail there from Eddie Hearn talking to TalkSport. So there's a few things there that I want to get into from those comments. I guess the first is reiterating how desperately that Anthony Joshua wants this fight. And I don't doubt that Joshua wants this fight. Joshua won't like to hear these comments that he doesn't want the Wilder fight, that he's ducking, and no one involved with Matchroom wants the narrative of ducking Deontay Wilder to take hold, because obviously Deontay Wilder's fan base and some more fans more generally do believe that Joshua doesn't really want the fight. And I think it's more a situation that potentially the promoters involved with the fighters potentially don't want the fight next because they would prefer to let the fight build. Because the more it builds, the bigger it gets. It is bigger now than it would have been if it was in September or October. It's going to be bigger if it happened in April, and then it would be bigger in a year's time if it hasn't happened by April. That's the thing. With something like this, with these two guys, if they keep winning, it sets up a showdown that has to happen at some point. And until it happens, the sort of pressure cooker atmosphere builds, and the fight gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I don't think that they have been in any real rush to some extent. I think if it's all on their terms, and that's the key thing, if it's all on their terms, they'll make the fight. But we've seen both sides. It has been about money. For all the talk of, about legacy and, home advantage and all sorts of bits and pieces, it really comes down to money. And anyone who wants to tell me different, you're lying to yourself. It's about money because they want to make as much as possible and they want to ensure that they get the most for themselves. That's why the majority of fights don't happen, is over money. And this fight is going to generate tens and tens of millions of dollars, potentially more for each fighter involved. And that's the thing. It's a big deal. It's going to be a legacy fight for both. And it's going to be the payday that they will probably never top in their career again, except for a potential rematch. And that's the thing. So this offer now we have from Matchroom. It's a minimum guarantee, a percentage offer to Deontay Wilder. And we don't really know what that percentage is. We do know that there would be a rematch, and that rematch would be in the United States. But the first fight would be in the United Kingdom. But the offer, what is it? It's been quite interesting since the offer was made, because Shelley Finkel immediately came out and said, look, we aren't going to sit down with these guys. We need to wait until December the 1st. We actually need to get this Wilder and Fury fight out of the way. Then we're happy to sit down and negotiate. So putting aside potential rematch clauses for Fury and Wilder for their thing, and also the fact that a Fury win probably sort of scuppers a Wilder and Joshua fight initially. But say Wilder won, then obviously what they want to do is capitalize on his increased commercial value. And that is why Shelley Finkel is saying, look, we don't want to meet now. But the thing is, Eddie Hearn, he's obviously come out and said, well, we're just going to go around Shelley Finkel because we need to get this fight done. We need to start talking now. But Where are things actually at with that? Because it's gone very quiet. So on October the 6th, after that fight card in Chicago, the first DAZN USA card, Eddie Hearn said to the media, look, I've actually started to make some progress now with Team Wilder. I've had to take Shelly Finkel out of it. He wouldn't meet with my dad. He wouldn't meet with us, so I've had to go around him. And at the time I thought, yeah, maybe he has done that, but what's the actual sum total of what's going on now? And we still don't know. And is Shelly Finkel really out of the picture, or is he just sidelined to some extent? Is Eddie Hearn just talking to someone else, but Team Wilder is still negotiating and talking amongst themselves about what they should and shouldn't be doing? Because Eddie Hearn has reiterated in this interview with TalkSport that they are making progress, starting to progress a little bit. And what does that really mean? We just don't know. Because Hearn's version of a bit of progress could be very different to yours or mine. Then again, it has gone a bit quiet, so maybe there has been some movement here, because when things do go quiet, that is often when movement is happening on the negotiation front, if there is in fact a negotiation at all. Because Eddie Hearn is saying there's a negotiation, that they're making progress. But out of Team Wilder, we're not actually hearing much. Shelly Finkel hasn't rebutted that he's been sort of cut out of the loop, or at least sidelined to some extent. And obviously we haven't heard any comment on the actual offer. But you'd have to imagine if the offer was a terrible offer, something that they just couldn't stomach, given it's now a minimum guarantee, a percentage offer, and a rematch. They know the date, they know the venue, where it's going to be, Wembley, April 13th, 2019. You'd have to imagine if it wasn't worth at least sitting down and considering, that they would have kicked it back and said thanks but no thanks, this is a terrible offer. And Shelly Finkel, obviously in the first negotiation earlier this year, had a habit of going very public, torching Eddie Hearn at any opportunity if he didn't like some of the things that either Hearn was saying or some of the details as part of the negotiation that he didn't like. And we haven't seen that this time. All we've had from Shelly Finkel is trying to sort of cut things off at the pass and say, no, we're going to wait. And they would wait, obviously, till December the 1st. They want to see if Wilder wins. They want to see where his real commercial value is. And that's a risk in itself, because if the fight doesn't do as well as they expect, then obviously they have a weaker negotiating base to sort of operate from. But then again, it's a double-edged sword, because if it goes gangbusters, if it really does, say, get 1 million buys, for example, just throw that out there, that gives them a lot of clout in the negotiations. But it is very interesting. A week has passed and we really haven't had anything coming back from the Wilder side saying, actually, Eddie Hearn's just off on his own here talking a load of crap. They haven't said that. And he's, again, continued to say things that indicate there is actually some form of negotiation underway. And obviously his comments, he doesn't expect to fail. He's got to deliver for his client. And Anthony Joshua has reiterated again, he wants this fight. This is the only fight that he is after. So Eddie Hearn, he does have to go after it to some extent at this point, at least from Joshua's sort of profile front, because if he isn't seen to be doing that, then it will look like he didn't want the fight. So they have to progress this. They have to go as hard as possible. And now we don't seem to have any negotiation deadline. And that's a good thing, because they've sort of come back from that we need to make a decision on his next fight by about the end of October to we have to start talks now. We don't expect to make a deal by December, but we need to start talking before December. So it's quite interesting, because in the absence of information, that actually tells us a little bit, because Shelly Finkel had been quite public with what he'd been doing previously, some of his statements, and now apparently, from what Hearn is saying at least, he is out of the loop. What do you make of this? Does Shelly Finkel not coming out or rebutting Eddie Hearn, is that actually telling us something here? Is the silence from the Wilder side allowing Eddie Hearn to keep going on the media saying, this is what's happening, we're making progress, I've gone around Finkel? Does that actually give you confidence that something is actually happening here? Or is it a case that Team Wilder is actually, they're just not bothered with what Eddie Hearn is having to say at the moment, that they'll hold the line and they might entertain little bits and pieces of what Eddie Hearn has to say, but nothing will start in concrete until after Deontay Wilder beats Tyson Fury on December the 1st, if he beats Tyson Fury. There's no guarantees there. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. That's boxing_squared. I'm out.